Welcome, everybody, to the premiere edition. Yes, this is a new show here on Pub Sports Radio. It's College Football Closing Time. That's the name I came up with just because I thought it made a lot of sense. We really are on closing time right now, closing down to the closing line, really, essentially. Closing down to opening kickoff of these college football games on this Saturday, October the 10th. We're planning on doing this show every single Saturday right here, 11 a.m. Eastern time on the Pub Sports Radio YouTube channel. And it was actually the idea of my colleague and co-host here on the show today, Connor Mack. He said, you know what, let's do a college football pregame show, kickoff show, closing time, closing line show, whatever you want to call it. Hour leading up to the kickoff of the first games of the day. We'll get through the entire card and break down each game. We'll give you a lean, an opinion, a bet. I mean, I've got bets on most games, but there are a few games I just have leans towards. So that's the point of this show, to keep you updated on maybe some injuries, where the lines are right now, and what we like from a betting standpoint for these games on this college football card. So looking forward to this show and doing the show every single Saturday moving forward. And great to be back with Connor Mack. Connor, how are you?
It's good to see you, Babano. Love a Saturday, man. It's finally fall. Even Las Vegas, it's cooling down. So I love the Saturdays, and love in October. It's just great. Except we'll touch real quick. I had Louisville last night, and we can just talk about that real quick. I think I won't be taking them for probably the rest of the year. That was a tough one. That was the rough.
Yeah, you know what? I was on that side as well, and they've just been a very underachieving, disappointing team, and it's very surprising because you think of what Scott Satterfield had to inherit from the dismal Bobby Petrino era, and what he did last year with getting that team to 8 wins, a bowl victory against a Mississippi State team out of the SEC, and I thought, wow, this team's probably got the chance to be even better, maybe even take that next step, 9 wins maybe, or better than that for Louisville. But they have just, they have no more toes left on their 2 feet to shoot anymore. That's exactly what Louisville's done in so many games. They've shot themselves in the foot with penalties, with turnovers. Obviously, you're going to be -3 in turnover margin, like they were last night against Georgia Tech. You're not going to have a very good chance of winning a game, let alone covering, and that's exactly what we saw from Louisville. The defense I thought would be better this year. It really hasn't. They couldn't get a stop when they needed it, and that was not a juggernaut offense they were facing by any stretch of the imagination. That was a Georgia Tech offense that was getting their butt kicked by UCF and Syracuse in back-to-back games. So
that's what made it more surprising. Such a bad Georgia Tech team. 12 turnovers. They didn't turn the ball over. Louisville, 3 turnovers. What a mess. It was tough.
Yeah, and again, line of scrimmage battle. Their defense got gashed against the run, which is and now all of a sudden we look back on the first game of the season. Louisville played Western Kentucky. We thought, wow, this defense looks a lot better, and they haven't played a good game on that side of the football ever since. All right, guys, let's go ahead to Saturday's card. I'm not going to go in rotation. I'm going to go in rotation order, but I'm going to do rotation order by time of the opening kickoff. So we're going to go in order. The 12 p.m. kickoffs, top of the rotation down to the bottom, then 12:30, just as we go throughout the day. And we'll end the show with the later kickoffs this evening. So we'll start with the earliest noon Eastern game from the top of the rotation, which is NC State, the Wolfpack, taking on the Virginia Cavaliers. We got Virginia 7-point favorites here in this game, 58.5, 59 the total. I made myself repeat it in my mind that I'm going to be very, very brief, much briefer than normal when giving my analysis on these games. But I'm going to keep this very simple. Very quietly, under the radar, look who's 8-0 to the over in their last 8 games dating back to last season. It's the Virginia Cavaliers. They have been a sneaky over the total team. And the reason for it is they have Robert Anai, their offensive coordinator, alongside Bronco Mendenhall, the head coach, and they've increased the tempo. They play a little bit faster now. This was going back to when Bryce Perkins was the quarterback at UVA last year. It's carried over to this new starting quarterback, Brennan Armstrong, who's actually been very, very good, I thought. I thought he did a really good job against a Clemson defense that's elite last week. He was moving the ball. He was running, making plays with his feet. And he was giving some trouble to that Clemson defense. I like the skill position talent. The offensive line is probably one of the better offensive line groups that Virginia's had. I think they're going to have success moving the football here. With all of these games this Saturday, you got to be mindful of the weather. We've got Hurricane Delta rolling through, and especially in the state of Louisiana, the southeastern part of the country. This is one game that's not going to be affected by weather. It's going to be cloudy, slight chance of showers, but not much wind. Weather shouldn't be much of an issue. NC State, they have an offense with Devin Leary. I've been impressed. He became the quarterback. They got him back finally. They've had some good offensive showings, including last week. You go into Pitt and you beat Pittsburgh 30-29, hang 30 points on a really good defense like that. You got to be impressed with what NC State and Devin Leary did in that game offensively. But unfortunately, as good as their offense was, they don't have much of a defense this year, NC State. You look at the games, they've allowed 40-plus in 2 of the games, 29 last week to a Pitt offense that's kind of a mediocre, run-of-the-mill, average offense and average quarterback, honestly, as well, with Kenny Pickett. I think Virginia moves the ball. I think NC State as well. And they've increased the tempo. They bring in Tim Beck, their new offensive coordinator. They've gone faster this year. The total's modest here in the high 50s. I think we get this game over the total. And to me, with Virginia on that 8-0 over streak, it's rided at this point until it stops cashing. Connor, any thoughts here? NC State, Virginia.
You nailed it. I love it here. At only 58.5, I think it's kind of a steal that it's, the way Virginia has, like you said, a sneaky over team with Mendenhall. And NC State is not very good defensively. But like you said, they played a great game against Pittsburgh, winning that 30-29. Like I said, I got the over 58.5, and I'd lean a little bit with the 7 here. I'm not saying take it. It's already moved. It's obviously came out like 9.5. So yeah, there we go. I love the over here for sure.
Yeah, in terms of the side, I'm actually leaning at 7. I'd lean a little bit to Virginia off the loss against Clemson, where you've got NC State off the comeback win against Pitt, and it's definitely a Virginia spot. But Virginia's not always that team you love, especially with some defensive warts at times, laying a full touchdown with them. But if I had to, I'd lean Virginia. But I'm just sticking with the over. I do think we see points in this game. Let's move on to another team involved in the state of North Carolina. And Dom, good to see Dommy Gunn in the chat. Dom Ricci, good to see you. Good luck today, Dom, with all your bets, not only today, this weekend. Virginia Tech, North Carolina. We've got North Carolina 3-point favorites here in Chapel Hill, 56.5, 57 the total. And that's exactly why this total's dropped as much as it has. It opened 60. It's down to 56.5, 57.5. Now, the reason for that is, again, potential weather issues, showers involved, as the hurricane is not, it's not going, the eye of it, I guess you could say, is not going to hit Chapel Hill, but they're going to get the edge of it, the outer edge of this hurricane cell, this hurricane system, and they're going to be, it's going to impact this game a little bit. It's a shame because this is another game I thought the offenses would have a good day and be able to roll up some points here. I still have a bet on the over, but it's not as strong for me as the game we just talked about. That being said, last I checked, Hendon Hooker was about to make his debut today at quarterback for Virginia Tech, and getting him back is absolutely huge for this offense, an offense that's actually, even without him, been able to score, been able to move the football with a great deal of success. North Carolina should be able to get some offense going here. It really wasn't a good game at all for Sam Howell against Boston College last week. If you watch that game, he was under pressure. He was as inaccurate as I've ever seen him in a very long time. North Carolina actually offensively has had some, I don't want to say underachieved, but they've not certainly been that explosive, offensively productive football team maybe we thought they would be coming into the season. But I think against a Virginia Tech defense that to me still is a little bit suspect. And who's going to suit up in the secondary? The last I checked, there was a potential for multiple starters in the secondary to be missing for this game due to injury for Virginia Tech. So that pass defense could be a little bit vulnerable. I still like the game over the total, but I would like it more had we not had this weather issue. The good news is, and it's something to be mindful of, the wind's not going to be terrible in this game. It's going to be showers, but the wind's not going to be heavy. It's going to be moderate. So again, the wind to me is always the number one factor and the biggest factor when it comes to weather impacting totals. So still like the over enough to bet it. Any thoughts from you, Connor, in terms of the side here or the total with Virginia Tech and UNC?
This is a good one. I didn't make a bet on either one. I definitely want to watch this game, though. I lean towards the over. I didn't have a good feel. Virginia, Herbert's running well. Last year, this was like 6 overtimes. this game. I lean over, and Virginia Tech's getting most of their guys back. They've had a lot of COVID over the last few weeks, and they're fully healthy, mostly on defense, but they're back. This is one I definitely want to watch. I don't have a play, but I think it's going to be a good one. I think Virginia Tech plays well here, and I like your lean on the over. I think points are scored. I think both teams can get in the 30s. So definitely a lean to the 57.5, the over, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty amazing. North Carolina, not a single person in the college football world had a bad word to say about them, and now all of a sudden, here's everybody lining up hand over fist, apparently, in this game to bet against them, because Virginia Tech's taking all the money here this week. They opened 4.5, 5-point underdogs down to 3 here in this game. Of course, I think having Hooker back at quarterback, which was he was on path to return, is a big part of that. North Carolina's kind of looked, not quite as dominant or impressive as people would think. So that's influenced this line for sure. Moving on, the next noon Eastern kickoff. It's the Red River rivalry. We can't call it shootout anymore, apparently. It's the Red River rivalry. Oklahoma and Texas at the Cotton Bowl in Dallas, where it always is, this annual rivalry game. Oklahoma 3-point favorites, total 74.5, even 75 starting to show up in some spots. So it's been about a 4.5 point move to the over here in this game. It's one of those games where, I can't bet it under with these two defenses. Like, Texas defense has been shaky. Oklahoma's had a non-existent defense. They have been absolutely piss poor. They've been soft. They've been bullied in the trenches. Their defensive line is just getting run over in back-to-back weeks. Those 2 losses against K-State and Iowa State, outright losses as favorites. This is now all of a sudden an Oklahoma team. I was reading some reports that the players were frustrated, that there's not a great vibe within the team right now, lacking some confidence. Spencer Rattler has really, to be honest, for 3 quarters in each of the last 2 games played well, but in the 4th quarter, costly mistakes, bad interceptions, ill-timed turnovers have really hurt Oklahoma in both of these games. And to me, that's where this game swings in Texas's favor, because you've got a huge quarterback experience advantage with Sam Ehlinger for the Longhorns over Spencer Rattler. Who's going to make the big play? Who's not going to screw up late in a close game? I think this game is going to be close. It's going to be tight. It's going to be down to the wire. It's going to be very much like the recent Oklahoma versus Texas games have been. But when at the end of the day, which quarterback are you going to trust to make the play to win the game rather than make the play to potentially lose the game? I think that's going to be Sam Ehlinger, and I do think Texas's defense is at least, even though they're struggling too, mildly capable. And I throw out, to me, it's more concerning Oklahoma lost the last 2 back-to-back, K-State and Iowa State. Texas losing to TCU, they always have a tough time with TCU. That didn't surprise me one bit. For some reason, Gary Patterson does well against Texas. I think Texas bounced back, and I don't want to harp on the Tom Herman as a dog angle, because you hear it all the time. But 16-5 against the spread as an underdog, and he is one here. I do like Texas. I think they get the win. Connor, what's your thoughts here? Red River rivalry.
I agree totally. In this spot, both weak defense. I mean, soft. Toilet paper, Charmin soft. As they say. I like you said, I want the better quarterback. I don't want Ehlinger. I take the 3, or in this short of price, take Texas money line. I think I'm going to put a half unit and the over. I think it goes over. When I start, you need 75, which I think it gets over. I'm not personally going to bet it, but I don't think so. But I think you see tons of points.
Yeah.
Just every once in a while in one of these games, the defense maybe plays. I'd rather go. I think the values with Texas getting 3, and like I said, a little money line. It's plus 120, 115, some places. So definitely lean Texas, and of course the over. I'm not playing it, but I know a lot of people are. But it's inching up. It's inching.
I cannot and will not bet it under. But yes, I mean that's the concern with 75. I actually bet the over at the open for a small play, 70.5, because I knew it had to go up. And that's exactly what happened. And so I'm fine with that. But 75, like 38-34, which is a common final score in football, especially, that doesn't get you the over in this game. Think about that. 38-34, it stays under. That's what you need. You need a 41-35 or a 41-38 or 42-38 at this point to get this game up and over the total. And that's always tricky because you get that one drive where and Oklahoma, I've noticed Texas has cranked up the tempo. They're playing faster because they brought the Oklahoma State offensive coordinator under Gundy from last year into Texas. They're playing faster. I find that Oklahoma is actually not playing quite as fast as they have in years past. They are huddling a little bit more. So that's a concern that their pace numbers have declined a little bit. What's also a concern is you could get that great 70, 80-yard drive, and whoops, what if there's a turnover like we saw multiple times in the Georgia Tech game last night? All of a sudden, a long time consuming drive with no points, and all of a sudden that's going to make that 75 even more difficult to get over the total. So that's why you worry sometimes betting overs, but I certainly wouldn't want the under in that game. The next noon game, we go to the SEC for this one. South Kakalaki, the Gamecocks against Vanderbilt. South Carolina, 13.5 point favorites, 40.5 the total in this one. I'm not involved in it, but I would much rather, in fact, lay the points than take them with Vanderbilt here. You look at South Carolina, they played Florida, they played Tennessee, two pretty good SEC East teams this year in their first two games. And they gave Tennessee a good battle, and we saw Tennessee just demoralize Missouri last week. And South Carolina was pretty competitive against Tennessee. Even last week, South Carolina's can make that a 7-point game, in the fourth quarter if they don't have a turnover on downs in the red zone. They hung in there with Florida. Florida, they couldn't stop. But I'll tell you right now, I will tell you this right now. Vanderbilt's offense is not Kyle Trask in Florida, and it's not even Guarantano in Tennessee's offense. This is a putrid, horrendous offense with a quarterback that could barely throw a forward pass properly from what I saw last week against LSU. A terrible performance by that Vanderbilt offense. I still like South Carolina's offense with Colin Hill, the Colorado State transfer at quarterback, and at the same coach he had there, Mike Bobo, is now the OC here at South Carolina. Good continuity. To me, South Carolina's been a bad double-digit favorite under Muschamp. That's the one thing that I'm concerned about, and it's not a game I'm involved in, but I'm giving you a lean here. If I'm getting involved in this game, if I were to bet it, I don't want Vanderbilt here at less than 2 touchdowns. It's South Carolina minus the points or nothing, because I think this is a big step down in class for them after Tennessee and Florida in their first 2 games. Connor, any thoughts here with South Carolina Vandy?
Yeah, this is an ugly one. And the over-under is 40.5. It's tough. Like you said, I think South Carolina is definitely right where this line is. Probably 2 touchdowns better over Vanderbilt on the road, but I wouldn't lay the wood. I wouldn't want to here. South Carolina played well. Like you said, they could move the ball well. I watched that first game against Tennessee, and they looked pretty good. I mean, they ended up losing that game by 4. As you said, Muschamp, this on the road, it's a total pass here. This is kind of just on to the next one.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the true freshman quarterback, Ken Seals, for Vanderbilt. I mean, 11 of 25, 113, like sub 50% completions. I'm telling you right now, you're not going to find me betting on an offense. And remember, offenses rule the day in football, NFL and college now. It's hard for me to get to the betting window in support of a team that has an offense led by a quarterback that went 11 for 25 throwing the football last week. That's just not going to cut it, not going to get the job done. And that's what we saw from Seals and Vanderbilt last week against LSU. And LSU people are saying, but that's LSU's defense. Yeah, but LSU's defense is completely rebuilt from last year. There's a lot of new faces there. So, if you said that he struggled against last year's LSU defense, I'd say, you know what, chalk it up to, you're just overwhelmed by a great defense. I don't think that's the case this year with LSU. So that makes that performance look even worse in my mind. But fascinating to see how it'll go between those two teams there. Moving on down, the next noon Eastern kickoff. We have 2 more at noon Eastern to get through. UL Monroe versus Liberty. Liberty. Point favorite here, Liberty, in this one, 63.5, 64 the total. This is another game where I'm on over the total, especially because weather not going to be the factor. We thought it might be early in the week, and I think bettors recognizing that. And if the weather's not going to be a factor, to me, 60.5, 61, where this total was about 24, 48 hours ago, was just too low. You got Monroe, a team that I think offensively might be starting to turn a corner. I kind of like what I saw from Monroe offensively the last game. Colby Suits taking over at the quarterback spot. I think it's going to be a situation where he's going to be able to move the ball. I'm not sold yet on Liberty's defense at this point. They've been better, so far this season, but I'm going to have to see it again one more time. On the flip side, we know how bad Monroe is defensively. I mean, they've just been unable to stop anybody. Liberty had their backup quarterback playing in their last game. They're expected to have Malik Willis back, the dual threat quarterback, the Auburn transfer, back in under center for them for this game today for Liberty. So it's definitely a situation where Liberty should be able to put up points. So should Monroe. I'm staying off the side, but definitely liking the game to be high scoring and over the total here with ULM and Liberty. Connor, did you get involved in this one?
I didn't, but I might go with the over here. I looked at it earlier. I think is it 61 right now?
It's gone up a bit though. 63 and a half now. And
63 and okay, yeah. I thought it might have been 62. Yeah, with Willis back, I think both these teams are in the 30s. Their defense is not very good. Middle of the road. And Hugh Freeze, I think like you said, Liberty's playing better defense, but yeah, this is a look. I might have to take this over as well. I looked at it a little bit earlier in the week, but kind of just passed. I mean, it was one of these games that I didn't dig deep into. But yeah, I love that look on the over for sure.
Yeah, and I think we're still seeing bad tackling in college. Like you look at I know it's only 2 games that have been played so far this week, but both of them fly over the total. And it's like, I think the NFL, you're going to see more unders this weekend. I'm not so sure that's going to be the case in college. We're still seeing some really poor tackling, some really bad defenses show up, and I think it could be that way with a bunch of these games today, once again, including this one here. Last game there's a couple more that kick off at noon. In fact, I believe I skipped one that starts at noon. Yes, I did. I skipped Florida and Texas A&M. Obviously, this is a good one here. 5.5, 6-point favorites on the road in College Station. This total's also been bet up, and this is another one I agree with the total getting bet up, 57-59. Who's stopping Florida's offense right now? Kyle Trask has been incredible. They've scored 89 points, averaging over 40 points per game in their first 2 games. I think Florida's got the second best offense in the SEC right now behind Alabama. I think that's how good they've looked, Kyle Trask and this Gators team on the offensive side. And if A&M's given up 52 points like they did last week against Alabama, why can't they give up 30s, if not maybe 40 in this game against the next best offense they've faced in Florida? This A&M defense doesn't look good. They look good in their first game, but you played a porous Vanderbilt team. A Vanderbilt team that, if not for multiple turnovers, they score more points in that game than they did. So don't give A&M's defense too much credit. Against any sort of real deep offense, they got ripped apart by Alabama last week. I think they're in for a long day here. Kellen Mond's kind of been disappointing in the offense for A&M, but Florida's defense hasn't been as locked down as I've seen it. I mean, you look at the first 2 games, Ole Miss moved the ball up and down against them. South Carolina had some offensive success against the Gators. Now you got to go on the road, face at least an experienced quarterback. He is inconsistent. He is maddening at times, Kellen Mond, but he is experienced. He's playing at home. I think A&M's capable of putting up some points as well. At less than a touchdown, I certainly am interested in Florida for a small bet as well. I think they're just better, and I don't trust A&M at this point in a big game against a good team. They just continuously fail to get the job done in these kind of spots. But more than anything, I like over the total at now 59 in this game. Any thoughts here for you, Connor, with the Gators and Aggies?
Yeah, this was one right away. I got it at 58. Now it's at 59 and a half. I definitely love the over here. The Aggies couldn't stop anyone. I don't. Trask has just been able to move the ball with ease. And like you said, Florida it's just weird to see them. I think they get better as the year goes on. But they're tackling their defense. You always think of Florida, it's kind of flipped so far this year. There's high scoring. Defense is a little softer here, which is strange to see. I think Mund gets him. Me too. A lot of people on here. We got Beach Boss in here. He's on Florida, and I know tons of people are too because it's -6. So I've been staring at that -6 here, and I don't know why I'm not doing it. I love the over. That I love that all week, and like you said, I've just been maybe and I don't like Kellen Mond, and I don't like him in big games. And I faded him last year. I took him sometimes. He's got a backdoor cover for me, but I just don't think he's a very accurate quarterback. He's athletic. He makes plays, but I have a tough time taking him. I mean, they're at home. It's just different. The crowd's not pumped up there. Kyle, the 12th man, the whole thing. So this is a good spot, and I'm definitely on the over 50. It's 59.5 now, but I had 58, and I'm leaning. I think I'm going to pull the trigger with Florida as well.
And again, you're right about the home environment with College Station and with Texas A&M. I mean, that's especially for big games when they have a major team coming into their place. It's usually a good environment, and of course, now you're going to be without that here today in this game. So it makes things easier for Florida here to be able to maybe get the win and potentially get the point spread cover as well. All right, we've got how many more games of the noon games? We've just got one more. LSU, Missouri, another SEC matchup. This was supposed to be at night, but because of the hurricane, they moved the game from Baton Rouge to Columbia, Missouri. So now it's going to be in Missouri. It's going to be a noon Eastern start time. We've got LSU 14.5-point favorites, 53 the total in this game. My modus operandi coming into this college football season was bet against LSU at every reasonable opportunity. Thankfully, I didn't go much on them last week against Vanderbilt because Vanderbilt I knew was that bad, and it played out to fruition. But remember, right before that, they lost outright as 17-point favorites at home against Mississippi State. First game with a completely new offensive system, air raid, and a new quarterback, new coach, new coordinators, everything. And Mississippi State wins outright on the road at LSU. I'm not trusting LSU as 14.5-point road favorites. I'm willing to give Missouri a shot here. Look, it was ugly for them last week against Tennessee, but I like that Connor Bazelik's going to be the quarterback. He's got a better arm on him than Sean Robinson. I thought Sean Robinson was horrible, and it was the right move by Eli Drinkwitz to put Connor Bazelik in there. Now he's got a full week of practice to get ready for this game. LSU, with all the hurricane situation going on back in their home state, now having to all of a sudden change plans, go on the road, that interrupts their practice routine and schedule going into this game as well. I don't think it's the worst thing in the world. Take a chance here. Missouri plus the 14.5, which is what I've done. Connor, any thoughts here? LSU, Missouri.
Yeah, I've really looked at this one a lot. LSU, like you said, you were looking to fade LSU early and often this year, and I agree. Missouri really looked, I thought for week one, which it was more at the end of the game against Bama, they did okay, but I didn't like how they looked last week. I like the 14.5 here, but I got enough selection. I'm going to stay off. I don't know if both teams are ugly, but getting 2 touchdowns in the hook, if there was one side, I'd take the Missouri here. Not the LSU Tigers, the Missouri Tigers. I would take the points at home, double-digit dog. That's how I take games, especially something like this. That's my lean for sure in this one.
All right, so we'll say a lean for Connor to Missouri at plus 14.5 in this battle of Tigers versus Tigers. All right, next game is 12:30 p.m. Eastern time out of the ACC, Duke and Syracuse. We've got Duke 1.5 to 2.5-point favorites on the road. 52.5 the total in this game. Duke suddenly, now albeit in a losing effort, but they finally got some offense going a little bit last week with Chase Bryce, I should say, has actually been a rather big disappointment because there was some expectations for him coming in, taking over as the starting quarterback from a great program, coming from a great program in Clemson. But it just hasn't really come to fruition yet for him with this Duke Blue Devils offense. But they did finally get a little something going last week here with the Blue Devils. They didn't turn the ball over as much. They had a great offensive performance, 31 points. Again, didn't beat Virginia Tech last week, but they covered the number. They scored 31 points. They had 410 total yards. It was a much better offensive game from Duke. I think that's a positive. And they also increased their own tempo and pace. David Cutcliffe normally is average, just a moderate pace. He doesn't really play fast. He played faster, and he saw that it worked. That's when Duke started moving the football, and he's made no hesitation about it in pregame comments before this game, saying we're going to stick with that this week. We're going to play a little bit faster and up-tempo. And look, Syracuse's offense hasn't been great. There's no question. Their offensive line's in shambles. Tommy DeVito at quarterback is not anything close to what they got from Dungy and some Eric Dungy and some other quarterbacks they've had in the past here at Syracuse in recent years. But Duke is really struggling right now on the defensive side. And just the way I see it, look, these are two sketchy offenses and quarterbacks. Don't get me wrong. But we've got a 51.5, 52 total with two teams that I know are going to play fast in this game. Duke's going to play up tempo. Syracuse under Dino Babers, you know what you're going to get from them offensively. They're going to try to snap the ball as quickly as possible, hyper speed with their pace and tempo. I'm going to take a shot on this over just because we've seen deflated totals now for Syracuse because of their offensive struggles. There was a time you couldn't get a Syracuse game total lower than the mid-60s. And now we're talking about 52 here, 52.5 with this total. So I'm going to take a chance here over the total because I know these two teams are going to play fast and above average tempo-wise on offense. I know they're sketchy offenses, but they're going to play fast, and I'm going to bank on that and hope for this game to go over the total. Duke and Syracuse. Connor, take it away. Duke, Syracuse, what do you got?
I think they play fast too. I haven't pulled the trigger, but I'm leaning that over as well. They are sketchy, but Syracuse, I think, moves the ball. And like you said, Cutcliffe, I think they picked up. They saw how well they played. You know what I mean? How Bryce threw it last week, and I think it's can easily get over there. Syracuse, they played a little bit better. They got a lot of turnovers against Georgia Tech last week. That played into. But that game was 37-20, I believe. You know, that's over here. So I totally agree with lean on the over as well. Definitely.
All right, so I'll lean.
And I think I will be playing it. So
all right, yeah, I
like
mean, could both of these offenses, which have been lackluster this season, sputter and we get maybe 27-20 and it stays under? Sure, no question.
Possibly.
Tempo's not everything. You know, you got to have red zone efficiency. You got to have execution. You got to be able to punch in your share of touchdowns and not settle for field goals and not turn the ball over in plus territory. You know, you got to rely on all those things for it to happen. But I think just with this number being like this total is about 15 points lower than you often see a Syracuse total. So that's why I'm going to take this chance on seeing more than 52.5 points. All right, the next
a lot of value there, like you said. I think.
Yeah, I agree with that completely. All right, we're going to go now to the 3:30 p.m. Eastern games. We got a bunch of them. Tennessee, Georgia, CBS. This is the big CBS SEC game this Saturday in that 3:30 time slot. Tennessee and Georgia. Georgia, 11.5 to 12.5 point favorites, 43 the total. Look, normally I would say favorite and under don't make sense, but to me, favorite and under makes sense in this game. And I'm not a big under guy, but this game has a 21-20 or 21-17 type of scrum, you know, written all over it. I mean, Georgia offensively, they've been good. They've been decent. They were really good last week against Auburn, but I'll tell you what is really, really good. Georgia's defense. They have looked like they're right there as maybe the best defense in the country so far. Everything your eyes tell you, they can get pressure. They have a pass rush. They are unbelievable against the run. You can't run on this Georgia team. I mean, it has been an outstanding start to the season for them defensively. And a lot of people like in Tennessee because they're taking money here, but this is the biggest game for Tennessee in a long time. And I know they're on this great win streak, but they haven't faced a boatload of upper echelon, elite, heavyweight competition during this win streak. Now they're going to be facing one, and they're facing them on the road here in Athens, Georgia. Let's see if Guarantano can play well and avoid mistakes against an elite defense. Let's see if Jeremy Pruitt, who is a coach that I've had my share of issues with since he's been the head coach here with the Volunteers, can match wits with Kirby Smart on the other side. Let's see that before I bet Tennessee. I'm staying off this game. This is a watch and observe game, but I lean favorite now at less than 2 touchdowns. Now that there's more value on Georgia, I would lean in that direction, minus 12, and would lean under the total here in this game as well. Connor, what do you think of this big one, Tennessee, Georgia?
Yeah, I didn't play this game either, but I agree with you. I think Georgia has one of the best defenses in the country. I lean under. And like you said, I know people are kind of going, I'm not that high on Tennessee. I just think they're a step away here with Pruitt in his third year. And I think it shows today. I mean, it could be, 2017 and they cover. It's a tough one. I think Georgia is the side here and the under. It's just it's one of those ones like you talked about. I definitely want to watch this game for sure. I'm not going to bet it, but I want to see how Tennessee. It's not easy to go in there to Athens and play Georgia, as you saw Auburn last week. And I was trying to tell people that, and Auburn's really never had success there in the last at least 10 years.
Yep.
And they got beat pretty handily. Bo Nix, Bo Nix will play, get to 7.5. And so I don't know I don't see Tennessee going in there. I mean, of course, it's SEC. It's going to be a dogfight, I think. But at 27-6, kind of looks like a score I could see again this week, as we saw last week. So
yeah, I mean,
27-10.
Yeah, 27-10 is the score that I have in mind for this game.
I agree.
That kind of victory for Georgia here in this game. All right, moving on down I don't trust Tennessee, put it that way. I don't love laying these kind of points in what could be a lower scoring game, but if I had to, I would lean Georgia for sure. Texas Tech, Iowa State. We've got Iowa State 13.5 point favorites, 63.5 the total. Big question mark is Alan Bowman, the quarterback for Texas Tech. He left the game last week against Kansas State due to injury. He was questionable all week long for this game. That's significant for me if I'm going to invest in the Red Raiders. But I can tell you right now, from a spot perspective, you can't ask for much of a worse spot for Iowa State. I mean, they're coming off that huge Saturday night primetime win at home against Oklahoma as a dog. And I like Matt Campbell as a dog in a big game, a step-up opponent at home. I don't love him as a double-digit favorite in a letdown spot the next week against Texas Tech. If Bowman's back, I'll have something on Texas Tech here. I'm still trying to find information whether he's going to play or not. It seems like they're waiting right up until game time to make this official or not. But even if he doesn't play, I couldn't lay the points here with Iowa State. It's just a dubious spot. They're not the kind of team to just run away and hide. And let's not forget, they were big favorites earlier this season at home against Lafayette. First game of the season, they lost that game outright. So they're not a team I trust in this price range. Texas Tech or pass for me. Connor, what do you think of this Big 12 matchup?
Yeah, I doubled up here. I love Texas Tech in this spot. I know with the QB out, but I didn't – their backup, Columbi, right? He played well last week. I just love the spot here. The big win. They're at home. I love Iowa State like last week as a dog, especially at home, getting all those points. I think it's a little bit of a letdown, so I definitely want these 13.5. And I think points are scored. Texas Tech can't. I think they can stay with it here, and I'm going to take the over as well. So I'm doubling up on this one. I'm taking the 13 and the over 64.
Yeah, Iowa State, it seems that when they play, that when they're a slower paced team, but when they play a team that plays with a little tempo, you sometimes can get over and high scoring games out of them. Oklahoma, we saw that last week, of course. So with Iowa State, so definitely have a chance to see that game go over the total. But yeah, I agree. It would be Texas Tech or nothing for me as well. Speaking of Texas, Texas State, Troy, the next game, 3:30 p.m. Eastern time. We've got Troy 7-point favorites. 62.5 was the total, down to 58.5. And again, this is a game, Troy, Alabama, getting some of the outer edge of that hurricane system. So that's exactly why this total's been pushed down. But this is one of those games. See what the weather's going to be for the actual period. When you're checking weather forecast, hourly forecasts, I keep saying that every year doing college football shows. Don't look at the overall day forecast. It could say cloudy showers, 90% rain, 30-kilometer winds. Who the hell cares about the full day? Go hour by hour. You want the 3-hour window when the game is actually going to be taking place. That's when you want to know what the weather is, and that's important when you're checking these weather reports. But this is a game that I had interest in the over, scale back a little bit, but I still pulled the trigger. Troy's a faster-paced offense. I like their pass game. Texas State offensively is better this year than they were last year. They play fast under Jake Spavital, so 58.5, 59 over the total for me. Not, again, as big a bet as it would have been if the weather was 100% terrific, but Still going to get in on this game over the total at a high 50s number. Texas State, Troy, Connor, any thoughts?
Yeah, I don't have a play in this game, but I'd lean to the over. Both teams, I think, score here pretty easily. Texas State, like you said, has been able to score pretty well this year. And Troy they're hard to put a finger on, but they'll score here against Texas State, I believe. They'll be in the 30s, for sure 40s, but I don't have a play on it. It's a pass for me.
All right, UTSA, BYU 35-63. The total. It's a pass here. I'm not involved. It's just now we're getting to the point where the numbers are just astronomical now with BYU. The cat's out of the bag. The secret's out. Everybody knows how impressive this team has been. And talent-wise, they can beat this UTSA team probably by 38 points or more, especially if Frank Harris doesn't play. And there's another quarterback situation where it's a game-time decision for the Roadrunners in terms of his status. And the backup last week that played for UTSA, Josh Atkins, he actually played last week, but then got hurt. So where they go for quarterback, if they don't expect Adkins to be available, but if Harris isn't available, you could be talking about a third-string quarterback in here for UTSA. That could be a problem. BYU, again, I'm not stepping in front of them. Like Zach Wilson in this offense, I can't believe how good they've been. I've railed on Kalani Sitake for years, throwing his offensive coordinators under the bus, way too predictable, no creativity, no explosiveness with this BYU team offensively for years. And now all of a sudden, here's Zach Wilson, 83% of his passes, over 13 yards per pass attempt. They have that explosiveness right now, and it took a while, but finally we see a BYU offense that looks very, very good. So it's a game I'm not involved in. I don't want to go against BYU, but, the time to bet BYU big was like week 1, week 2, when the numbers were a little bit more reasonable. Now you're taking an inflated price every week, it seems, with BYU. So it's a pass. Connor, what's your thoughts here with the UTSA BYU game?
Yeah, this one's a pass. I'd lay it with BYU if I had to. Zach Wilson looks so great. Rami, the receivers, they look really great. I just don't want to lay 35. I think they get it done. I think UTSA, the other side you haven't looked at, yes, they haven't played anyone, but this is another team that's not very good in UTSA that BYU should probably hold to under 14 points. I believe BYU's given up, 17 points this year. Or sorry, they gave up 2 touchdowns, that junk touchdown, because I had the over in that Lafayette. But before, I think 24 now total, 10 before that in the shutout. So, yeah, BYU or pass here.
All right, on we go. 4 p.m. Pitt, Boston College. Pitt minus 6.5, 43 the total. Pitt off a loss. I like the spot for Pitt. Now you're off a loss. You got smacked down a little bit by that tough loss to NC State last week. Boston College left it, really, really good effort, resilient effort last week against North Carolina. Fall just short. I worry about Boston College bringing it again, that same intensity. They emptied the tank against North Carolina to fall just short, and now you got to play Pitt off a loss. It's a Pitt spot, but there's no way I'm laying 6.5 with Pitt on the road. It's just not a team, not a quarterback, not a coach that I want to lay 6.5 points with on the road. This is a guy that up 3 with 2 minutes to go from the 2-yard line will kick a field goal. That is what Pat Narduzzi has done, and that is probably what he will continue to do. That bothers me if I'm going to lay significant points on the road. So for me, it's Pitt or nothing, but I chose nothing. What about you, Pitt, BC, Connor?
Real quick, I just want to give a shout out to Ben Martin, Ole Knows, Robert Allen, Just My 2 Cents, all our guys that are in your prints.
Yeah, exactly. Thanks for joining us. Absolutely.
Thanks for joining us.
Good to mention that.
Yeah, I'm on BC here. I just didn't want Pitt minus 6. I think Boston College, and it's a different Boston College team. They haven't been able to run it well. And their offensive line isn't too great, but Jurevich has been able to throw the ball around their QB. So I like the 6 here, and I'm even going to sprinkle a little on the money line here.
Like in BC, I'll tell you what, this young coach for BC, I'll tell you what, I don't want to totally rip on Adazio, but it's not like Adazio did great there at Boston College, not at all. This guy looks like he's got his team prepared. I think they're pretty disciplined. They often don't beat themselves. There's a lot of positives right now with BC. It's just, can they bring themselves back up off the mat and be ready to go again after the game? Noli knows in the chat asking where are the unders. You're right. We're like we're like the polar opposite of bettors. Our profiles, what we look for in betting. I'm almost exclusively overs. Noli,
me too. This week
the unders. But again, I like the Tennessee Georgia under a little bit. Pitt BC under makes some sense. In this game, I think it's going to be tough for the offenses to really get on track. So there are a couple unders I like here today, and this game probably would be one of them. Let's go to the SEC again for this 4 p.m. game. Arkansas, Auburn. Auburn 14-point favorites, 45.5 the total. Other than Arkansas having a letdown against, after the big win against Mississippi State last week, look, they battled Georgia for a half. And obviously their offense didn't work. Not many offenses are going to work against that Georgia defense, but they hung tough for well over a half with Georgia in the first game. Went outright against Mississippi State as underdogs. Now, Mississippi State had a ton of turnovers and were sloppy. I get it. But you got to like the early returns for Sam Pittman in the first year as head coach here with this Arkansas team. Felipe Franks, the Florida Trent, like this offense is still not a finished product. It's still a work in progress. But their defense has shown up. They held Georgia in check. They forced turnovers against a good Mississippi State air raid attack. Is Auburn's offense an offense you trust right now, laying 2 touchdowns? Not me. I mean, you look at Bo Nix. He's not really lighting it up. He's not been great in terms of the downfield vertical game. The offensive line's not consistently protected or blocked for him. There's issues right now with this Auburn team, and it's not an offense I like laying 14 with. So to me, it's Arkansas plus the points. A small bet I think is worth it here on Arkansas, even if the spot's not great after the big win last week. And Auburn, after getting clobbered by Georgia, they'll be chomping at the bit to bounce back. But just because they bounce back, they can win the game. Doesn't have to mean they win it by more than 2 touchdowns. So Arkansas plus the points. Noli, you said, where are the unders? This is another game. I agree with the move toward the under here, 45.5. I think it's going to be 2 offenses. I don't think are going to light it up here. Again, you're missing this opened 51. This has been a huge move to the under, but you can totally see why this game is taken under money for sure. Connor, what's your take here with Arkansas, Auburn?
Yeah, I'm in a pass. I've never been a big Bo Nix fan. He's athletic, like we talked about Kellen Mond. He just is not. He doesn't hit his receivers well at all. He's all over. He's high, he's low, even on these slants. Now I'd go Arkansas. I like what Pittman's doing, the coach. I think Arkansas's got a little. I just don't like the spot right here. I'd lean with the 14.
Yep.
So that would be my lean. The 14 with Arkansas. This spot right now, I think Auburn plays well. They're at home, and it's kind of a toss-up whether they cover or not. You see them come out really well,
And you know what I'm worried about in this game? I'm worried that Auburn's defense really, because Arkansas offense is still very, very sketchy.
Yeah.
And on the road, they get completely shut down, and even Auburn's mediocre offense does enough, and they win like 21-6 or something. Like that's 24-6.
Yes.
Something like that. I'm kind of worried about some kind of score like that. But still, for me, it's Arkansas plus the points. Big time is the way I would go before I considered laying 14 with Auburn. Next up, K-State TCU. TCU, 9.5, 10-point favorite, 49.5 the total. Carbon copy of Texas Tech, Iowa State for me. Again, you got TCU in a point spread range I don't trust them in. All you've done with Kansas State when Bill Snyder coached them for decades, and since Chris Kleiman has been the head coach, all they've done is cover numbers as dogs. Like, it's unbelievable, Kansas State. 7-2 ATS as a dog under Kleiman. You don't need me to tell you the numbers under Bill Snyder for years, how good they were in the underdog role. Now, again, we do have a quarterback injury concern. Skylar Thompson got injured last week for K-State. They could have to go to their backup in this game. That's definitely something that's concerning. Last I checked all week, Kleiman was talking like Thompson was going to be good to go and play. But until you actually see him on the field, you're never 100% fully sure. But I will say this, the guy that came in for Skylar Thompson last week in that game against Texas Tech, he actually played pretty well, coming into that game and led the Wildcats to a good victory against Texas Tech. So TCU, again, off the big win against Texas. They're 6-14 ATS, their last 20 tries as home favorites. That's not very good. For me, it's K-State plus the points. They have been good. They've beaten good teams. Remember, they beat Oklahoma as like almost 4 touchdown underdogs. To me, TCU and Max Duggan and the offense look better, don't get me wrong, than they played last year. But I think K-State, again, take advantage of the spot and keep this game close. I like the Wildcats. Connor, what's your thoughts here?
Yeah, we talked about earlier. I think I've had a pretty good read on the Big 12 early, and I got to take K-State here. I think at 9.5. I love the points with K-State here. I think Thompson's a go. I'm pretty sure he is. We'll see. I just don't like the spot how we were talking with TCU. I don't think they're in a spot to, the big win coming home. I think it's a good game here. Maybe, 30-27, something like that. I think it's just this is a good one, and it's close. So I'm definitely taking those points, 9.5 with K-State.
All right, liking K-State plus 9.5, plus 10. We'll go a little past noon Eastern time, but we've got a few games still left. MTSU, FIU. We've got Florida International 6.5, 7-point favorites, 56.5 the total. Look, Florida International is rotating their quarterbacks during their games. It worked against Liberty. Their offense was fine, but their defense is lacking big time. And to me, this is Middle Tennessee State's offense has been a little bit up, a little bit down, inconsistent. But this is a step down in class for them with some of the defenses they played. They played Western Kentucky last week. They're a pretty good defense. That's not Florida International. I think Asher O'Hara and the Blue Raiders can get some offense going. And I think for FIU, they're playing faster on offense, and their offense is definitely ahead of their defense. So this is an over the total for me at 56.5, reasonable number. What's your thoughts here, Connor? MTSU, FIU.
Yeah, this one's ugly. It's a pass for me. I think points will be scored. A couple of bad teams, bad defenses. This one I kind of looked at and just kind of went, it's one of those turn the page.
We all have those games on a Saturday call.
Yeah. This one was just kind of like, no way. So that's a pass for me here.
All right, on we go now. We'll keep the pace good, crisp right now. Let's see, 6 p.m. Eastern, next game. Temple, Navy. Temple, 4-point favorites, 51 the total. Look, I know this is the first game of the year for Temple, so who the hell knows what you're going to see? And normally I don't like backing teams in this spot, but Navy's a sorry-ass team right now. Okay, they were gift-wrapped, an Air Force team with missing 35, 40 people last week, and they got absolutely destroyed, and their defense is nowhere to be found. You can't find Navy's defense with a telescope on the football field right now. It's an embarrassing situation, really, to see what's become of them on the defensive side of the football. They've had now they're going to have their quarterback returning for this game today, which is a good news, because this is the guy that led the comeback for them against Tulane a few weeks ago. Remember that second half comeback? This was the quarterback that did it. He's back today, and he didn't play last week against Air Force. So that being said, Navy's defense has been so hideous. I didn't mind laying 3 with Temple. It's up to 4 now. I still lean Temple. I don't love it as much at -4, but it would be laying the points with Temple or nothing. And I do agree with this total. Again, it's tricky with Navy because they play so slow, slower paced team. But the total's only 50.5. I think Temple moves the ball. And I think Navy's offense is at least a little bit more capable with that quarterback returning today for them. So Temple and over would be my looks here on this game. How about you, Connor, with this AAC matchup?
I agree. It's up to 4, but I like Temple in this game. I always like to look at Navy as a home dog. I was all over Air Force last week, and they just killed them. They played big. Navy's defense is very good. Russo, I think he puts up points. Temple's a tough, gritty team. I think they go in and they win and cover here. I'm not going to play it, but that's my lean for sure. I like how you went with that. And I go a little bit on the over. The game, because just the way Navy has been able to stop anyone, this could go under, though, for sure. It could be a 24-21, something like that. But, yeah, I'd be Temple to the side I would take. I looked at this one kind of closely. I didn't pull the trigger, but Temple was my lean here.
All right, next game up is East Carolina and South Florida. We're into nighttime games now. South Florida, 6-point favorite, 57.5 the total in this game. This is a pass. I'm going to keep it brief. I can't lay 6 with South Florida. No way. But what I've seen from East Carolina the last 2 weeks against UCF and Georgia State, it's alarming. Their offense is completely broken and shot right now. And I don't know what's happened to Holton Allers, their quarterback, who I thought was pretty good at times last year. He's regressing. He looks terrible. He's missing throws, turning the ball over. The offensive line's just not protecting him whatsoever. So this is a game I don't want either part of it, either team. At the total, if East Carolina's offense looks as broken as it has the last couple of weeks, it's tough to bet an over. So this is a game I want no part of. Connor, did you make a case for anything here? ECU, USF?
Yeah, no way. This was one of the ones, a total pass.
Yep.
And you said it's two bad teams, so you could see it, but I don't know if this, we talk about unders, Noli, this is being under, I could see here. But like you said, when you get two bad teams kind of together, points could be scored, so it's tough, but I definitely would, that'd be my lean here, would be the under 57, but a pass, totally, too bad, nothing, no look. Yeah.
I think stylistically it could stay under, but the problem is these Carolina totals are always high 60s, and now all of a sudden they're 50s. There's been a huge adjustment, so that's my worry. But yeah, I mean, it could be lower scoring. Two offenses I don't trust right now, that's for sure. All right, 7:30 games: Mississippi State, Kentucky. Kentucky 3-point favorites, 57.5 the total. It's got to be frustrating for Kentucky. There were some big expectations expected for the Wildcats. Expected to be a better team this year under Mark Stoops, and they've had two tough losses. The Auburn game, the Ole Miss game was a heartbreaker last week. 0-2, desperate team, but Mississippi State in the dog role with Mike Leach has been good for so many. He's been such a great underdog coach, Mike Leach. Tech, Washington State, he won outright as a dog against LSU. I definitely would lean Mississippi State here, especially now that it's 3. I'm not as much interested, without getting that field goal cushion. But now that it's +3, I'm more interested on the Mississippi State side here in this game. And that's probably the way I would go. In fact, probably we'll have some Mississippi State Bulldogs in pocket now that it's hit 3. Connor, your thoughts, Mississippi State and Kentucky?
Me too. I like that. Yeah, that it's hit 3. As the afternoon goes on, I think too, I might do it. I like Mississippi State getting the points. Kentucky, yeah, it's been tough this year. I loved Ole Miss last week against them, and I didn't pull the trigger. They won outright. I mean, the kicker shanked that point. Kentucky's going to be – that's why I've stayed off so far. Like you said, it's got to 3, but all week I'm going, if I'm laying this game, I'm taking Mississippi State. I'm taking the dog. So this is what I'm thinking about, but definitely lean Mississippi State here with me, and I'm going to think about that by tonight because I think I might play it.
I'm going to save Miami Clemson till the very last game because it's the big game of the night, even though it's 7:30. So we'll keep that till the end. Alabama Ole Miss, we'll do that one next. Alabama 23. The total was 74, went down to as low as 68, and now it's back up to 71. And I think that's because the weather's going to be a little bit better in Oxford, Mississippi than they thought it was originally going to be. And this is another game. I don't know if the value's there on the over, but I damn sure ain't betting it under with these two teams, that's for sure. They've got an offense, Ole Miss. Lane Kiffin with Matt Corral and John Reese Plumlee, those two quarterbacks that he interchanges, they got a good offense. His play calling and his play design and his scheme has been good. I mean, he has play called the hell out of things for this team in the first couple weeks. Great play calling against each of their first 2 games, Florida, as well last week against Kentucky, a good defense. I like what I see from the Ole Miss offense, and I like nothing about what I see about the Ole Miss defense through the first 2 games of the season. That's trouble against Mac Jones and an elite Alabama team. An Alabama team that I thought last year, believe it or not, Connor, was better offensively than defensively, and I feel that way this year about Alabama. I think they're excellent offensively, but I think they've taken just a small – they're still good defensively, but they've taken a small step back defensively. You could argue the value's not there on the over, but I don't want the under. As far as the side's concerned, look, there's talk, Lane Kiffin, former offensive coordinator of Nick Saban's in Alabama. If he's up big, does he take his foot off the gas? I don't want to guess that. My advice to you is if you like Alabama, take them first half rather than worry about that when it comes to the full game. So I lean slightly to that, Bama first half, as well as the over for the game. Connor, your thoughts here, Alabama, Ole Miss?
Yeah, you nailed it. If I'd play this spot, it would be Bama first half. This game, Mississippi, Lane Kiffin, Mississippi can move the ball, and it's shown the first few weeks. and I would want to take 24 at home, but I don't know. I don't know. They're going to give up. If they give up 40 to Kentucky, and I mean, I know what's OT. Bama scores 40, maybe 50 here. Mississippi, I think they can move the ball. Like you said, the Alabama, it's not the old Alabama defense that it was. So, yeah, it's a pass. And I don't like I think it's the total's right on line here, so.
All right, so there we go. Alabama, Ole Miss. Next up, we move on down the card. UTEP, Louisiana Tech. Are we going to go mining for units with UTEP tonight, anybody? Are we that bold here? 14.5-point underdogs against Louisiana Tech, 55 the total here in this game. Look, UTEP, okay, they've had a couple decent results here all of a sudden, but I think this is a fool's gold situation here with UTEP. Their offense is still pedestrian. Look, Louisiana Tech, to me, under Skip Holtz, they've had a great run the last few years. This looks like one of the weaker teams that don't look good defensively. I get that. But you're taking a huge step down in class from some of the offenses you played this season, especially the BYU team you played last Friday night. I think this is one of those games where UTEP comes back down to earth in a hurry. I think Louisiana Tech stepped down in class time. I'm laying the 2 touchdowns here with the Bulldogs. Connor, what's your thoughts here?
I totally agree. I looked at this. I think La Tech covers here. I like it as well. UTEP is not that good, so I'm a La Tech guy here as well, definitely.
All right, next up, Florida State, Notre Dame. Notre Dame, 21-point favorites in South Bend, 3-touchdown chalk, 52.5, 53 the total. Look, be careful with Notre Dame this week. They haven't played in weeks. They had a COVID-19 situation. They said there's about 10 or 11 players of the 30-some that have originally contracted the virus that are still not available today, but we don't know if they're starters. We don't know if they're second, third, fourth string. We don't know. So be careful with this today here in this game. I would lean Florida State, as crazy as that is to sound, because James Blackman is not there to screw it up for this Florida State team. Jordan Travis came in. They finally benched Blackman. It was long overdue. Last week against Jacksonville State. Now, it was Jacksonville State at home, but Jordan Travis, at least 5 straight touchdowns.
Yeah.
What is he going to be able to do here on the road? That's going to be the question moving forward. Hold your nose and take Florida State plus 21. And maybe even first half Florida State, because Notre Dame not playing in weeks. Maybe they come out a little bit flat, a little bit slow. Jordan, it's tough because I liked a lot of what I saw about Jordan Travis, but home, Jacksonville State, now you're road, Notre Dame's defense. It's a big, big difference. So, but I still lean Florida State. I can't lay 3 touchdowns in this situation here with Notre Dame. Connor, what's your take here? Seminoles Fighting Irish.
Right away, I'm just over the years, I just cannot, lay 3 touchdowns with Notre Dame, and everyone's on him this week, and that's still my lean, and it's gone down to 20.5. I mean, it's been there though. It was there yesterday. It's not like that's still my lean, but I get why you would be on Florida State. Notre Dame's the few weeks off. They say the COVID is pretty good, but I could see Notre Dame struggling a little bit until they get going. It's a pass, and everyone's on Notre Dame here. Just they think they're gonna, that I've talked to around it. But so I'm gonna pass. I never loved Notre Dame in a spot like this. I'll just pass.
All right. Next up, we've got Marshall, Western Kentucky. Marshall, 6.5, 7-point road favorites, 43 the total in this game. Now that the number got up to 7, I took Western Kentucky. They do have a good defense. And I know Tyrell Pigrome is inconsistent throwing the ball, but they do have a good defense. They can run it. Marshall, they got a young quarterback, first-year starter, going on the road. And this is another team. They've had their schedule disrupted. They haven't played in weeks. You worry that they're a little bit they're not sharp early in the game in particular. And for an offense I don't trust against a good defense on the road, too, for Marshall, I'm happy to take +7. I think the line move has gotten a little carried away here on Marshall, given the spot. So I'm on the Hilltoppers here, plus the touchdown. Connor, anything here?
I lean with Western Kentucky too a bit. This is a good one. I like Marshall, and they beat App State earlier this year. I don't love them -7 on the road at Western Kentucky with a pretty solid defense. This is kind of a trap pass for me. It's one of those Marshall on the road. Kentucky. This could be a Kentucky win or a close game. Marshall could win by 14, but it's one of those I don't want to take a chance. It's a pass, total pass.
All right, we got one more game before we get to the last game. We'll talk about Miami Clemson, Charlotte, North Texas. Charlotte 2.5-point road favorite, 67 the total. I'm going to take something on Charlotte here, -2.5. I know it was a disappointing result for them last week. I don't know what happened. They had a big lead against Florida Atlantic, and they couldn't hold it. Bad loss, really, but North Texas looks like they're in shambles. They have no defense. They're going to have a bunch of injuries on both sides of the ball today. They've looked absolutely brutal. It takes a lot to get blown out by Southern Miss, and somehow North Texas, that happened to them last week. A bad Southern Miss team blows them out. I'm on Charlotte here at the short number. Anything here for you, Connor, in this one? Mean Green and 49ers?
If I play, I'd take Charlotte as well. I think they're the more complete football team. I just don't like laying 3 on the road. That's my lean. That's about it. Charlotte last week, I liked them. They played FAU, right? They played well. Yeah, it's a pass. But Charlotte, I'd lean with Charlotte. I think they have the better football team right now than North Texas, even on the road.
Yeah, we left it till the end, save the best for last, Vanessa Williams style. We've got Clemson 15-point favorites here, 59-60 the total here in this game. This, to me, part of me really believes Miami's given Clemson a game tonight. And what I've seen from them has been very, very impressive. But Clemson's been outstanding against top 10 teams. I believe Dabo Swinney in his career is like 17-5 against the spread in games against top 10 opponents. So that tells you when the games are the biggest, the lights are the brightest, Clemson plays their best football. And Miami, look, Louisville's defense, we saw Louisville's defense last night, sucked. And Miami moved against them. I get it. They beat up on UAB. I get it. This ain't UAB or Louisville this time on defense. This is Clemson, and I like what I'm seeing out of this offense. They play extremely fast. De'Aaron King's been outstanding, the quarterback for this Miami Hurricanes team. But now on the road, huge game, Death Valley. Can they do it again here against this Clemson defense? I think on the flip side, though, when you look at it, Clemson, they're going to be able to do damage offensively big time. This Trevor Lawrence, to me, and the offense has looked a little bit, they've been good, but they haven't been great. This is a defense, a big game, and a defense that I'm still not sold on yet. Miami, on that side of the ball, Clemson should move it. I'm staying off the side. This looks like they're enticing you to take Miami. I'm going to need to see Miami in a huge game like this before I trust them to be able to go in there and cover and maybe compete. Although a sneaking suspicion they might, but more than anything, I'll look over the total in this game because Miami overs, I've just been betting them every week, and I'm going to keep doing that until I finally lose one. So that's where I'm going more than anything, over the total of, and I think the total went down and now it's gone back up to, let's see here. Totals, it was down to 59 and it's gone back up a little bit. Yeah, it is still 59. So, and again, maybe some weather there influencing it, but I still think we see points in that game between Miami and Clemson. Connor, the big one tonight, what do you think?
Yeah, this is the big one. I agree with you. This is a step up, and Clemson hasn't played really 4 quarters, I think, of their best football this year. Virginia scored last week. I think Miami scores. I'm glad this total is dropped. I'm on the over with you. I think Miami gets some here, and Clemson's definitely going to score on Miami, whether or no weather. I like the over here, and I like that it's dropped to 59. So,
yeah, and there is definitely going to be some rain in the forecast tonight in Clemson, South Carolina. But the wind, from what I've seen, is not going to be the worst, and that always matters much more to me when it comes to betting totals in football. What's the wind going to be, as opposed to what's it going to be in terms of rain or wet or dry. So that's why I'm still going to, and now you're getting a lower number because people are a little bit more interested in the under now because of the rain potentially being involved. When I think when it's all said and done, wins the bigger factor. So I do like the under or the over rather in this game, Miami Clemson. I'd lean Miami plus 15, but I don't know. I got to see them go toe to toe with Clemson before I can actually trust them to be able to get the job done. All right, that's going to wrap it up. We'll throw out a best bet, a best bet to wrap up the show. I usually like doing that. I'll throw out a best bet for later on. I'm going to go with Kansas State. Now that it's plus 10 against TCU, 7-2 ATS as a dog under Chris Kleiman. That's all they do is cover as underdogs. They've played well against TCU in the past. TCU off the big win against Texas. I think it's a lot of points for them to be laying. They've not been good. 6-14, last 20 as a home favorite against the spread for TCU. Give me K-State plus 10 against TCU. I'll use that as a best bet. Connor, if you had to give out a top player best bet for today for you, what would it be?
I'm split. I'm so into this Texas Tech, but I'm going to go with that Miami Clemson. I like the over. I've liked it all week, and it's dropped. Rain, no rain. I'm going to go with the over at 59. So that's my best bet.
All right, there you go. Miami Clemson over 59 for Connor's best bet. That'll wrap up our first edition of the College Football Closing Time Show here at Pub Sports Radio. Thank you to everyone for tuning in. We appreciate that. We'll be here every Saturday, 11 a.m. Eastern Time, breaking down the Saturday college football card. For Connor Mack, I'm Ian Cameron. Have a great Saturday, a great weekend. Cash some tickets. Good luck with all of your wagers, everybody. Thanks to everyone in the chat for joining us as well. We'll see you again next Saturday right here for another edition of the Saturday College Football Closing Time Show.